Hey guys, so we are going to go through the last little bit of mammals notes as soon as my screen loads. So we'll just awkwardly wait. There we go. All right. So we're going to go through all the major orders of animals. There are actually 21 different orders. So let's just get started. So we already talked about the first two. We have the monotremes, which are our egg layers, and then our marsupials, which are our poached animals. So these ones primarily come from like the Australia, New Guinea, Tasmania, kind of like that Southeast Asian region of the world. We already kind of talked about these, so we will move on to our next one, which are the rodents. So these rodentia means gnawing animals. Anything with a dent in it means teeth. So these have two incisors. When we talked about teeth last time, incisors are your front two teeth, and they actually keep growing. I remember when I was little, I had pet rabbits, and we had to keep giving them like wood blocks to chew on. Otherwise, their teeth would just keep growing and growing and growing and growing. Even though a rabbit is not a rodent, they also have that. Um, I believe if you have chinchillas, you have to do that too. Lots of those different animals. The big one above me is a capybara. So that is the largest known um, rodent, which is pretty cool. Then next we have the Chiroptera, which are our flying mammals. So these are more commonly known as bats or flying foxes, which actually isn't a bat, but it is in the same order. So with these in the middle, we have the leaf-nosed bat, which is really, really cool. So this looks like a leaf. Down below, we have the northern long-eared bat. Those actually live in Wisconsin, which is pretty neat. Some of the flying foxes, they can literally be like have a wingspan of like 6 feet. Absolutely massive animals, or very, very teeny tiny. Next, we have the insectivores. So these are things like shrews, moles, hedgehogs. They specifically only eat insects. So their teeth tend to be very like little serrated teeth. And then they have those like nice, cute, big noses that they can kind of root around in the soil with. They live in all areas of the world except for Australia. They never quite made it there. So it's kind of an interesting fun fact. Next, we have the carnivores, which are the flesh eaters. Carne means meat. So these are things like dogs, cats, raccoons, bears, all of those different things. Um, However, we now do also have some carnivores in Australia. They are considered invasives as well. With these, some just noted exceptions, or not exceptions, but interesting things is hyenas are actually felines. Hyenas are cats. They're not dogs. Many people think they are dogs. So kind of cool. Next, we have the primates. So their brain to body size ratio is the largest, and they actually have those very complex units and all of those different things. The one right above me is a bonobo. They're really super commonly confused with chimpanzees. However, they are actually different. A bonobo is more closely related to a human than a chimpanzee is. So those are actually our closest related relatives. And if you look at just how they are, it makes a little bit of sense. You can see their proportions are actually more human-like than a chimp, where a chimp kind of has like a longer torso and shorter legs. They're actually very, very proportionate. But over to the side and kind of like behind my picture, we have the other different ones like gibbons and tamarins and different monkeys and different things like that. Kind of cool. So the next one is an animal that is classified by its hoof shape. Hoof shape. Oh my goodness gracious. So these are our even-toed hoofed animals, like pigs. They have like two little prongs on their hooves. We also have things like deer and sheep and different things like that. Right to the side, right there, that is something called a Chinese water deer. And if you notice, they're deer, but they don't have antlers. They actually have fangs. So you can kind of see it in the one that is eating the leaf that has like some little fangs there. Kind of super cool. Next, we have our mammals that are fully marine. So they have a blowhole, which is actually directly connected to their lungs. So when they can't even breathe in through their mouth, they can only breathe through the top of their head. So if you think about like you can't breathe and eat at the same time, but they can. super weird. I've always been fascinated by that. It's a super weird, fascinating thing that they can do. So the next one are the rabbit order. So these are things like hares, rabbits, and pika. So over on the very far side, on the opposite side of the hares fighting in the middle is what a pika looks like. That is where a Pikachu came from. A lot of Pokemon are actually based off of these different animals, which is very unique. And I definitely appreciate that. And once you know more animals than just the ones that we're used to, you can kind of start to see those patterns in that whole world of Pokemon. So the next we have our marine hunters. These are things like seals, sea lions, walruses, all of those different things. So lots of different varieties of these are all over the world. They can live anywhere from Caribbean waters all the way to polar regions. They typically live in a little bit colder water. They do have some in Caribbean regions, but definitely more temperate regions. The next one we have are our toothless mammals. A lot of people are very, very interested in the fact that things like anteaters and sloths actually don't have well-developed teeth. They primarily eat insects or mosses or leaves or anything like that, but very underdeveloped teeth. So it's kind of interesting. They are all very closely related to each other, though. Things we have like the armadillo, which is really common in the southeastern United States as well. The next one we have are the hopping shrews. So people think that these are rodents. Technically, they are their own order. They are not rodents. So these shrews, like the elephant shrew, is the one that like this kind of looks ombre before ombre was cool. You can see, especially in the picture down below of it drinking, it has a little like dingle bit on its nose. That is why it's called an elephant shrew. And they have long hopping hind legs, but that shrew nose is really kind of what classifies them as being a shrew. And they are, in fact, insectivores. Next, we have our odd-toed hoofed animals. So it's kind of weird to think about, but like a horse or a zebra, they have one hoof. We consider that an one toe. That is, they literally have one toe. So just imagine like a human foot with one toe walking around. That's how they walk. They walk on one toe, so that's an odd number. But we also have horses, or I'm sorry, rhinoceros, different things like that. They have three toes, so those are more closely related. Hippos would be in this category as well because they also have three toes. This is kind of an interesting one. Sirenia, if you've ever heard of a siren, especially Harry Potter fans or any other mythical species things fans, uh, they commonly call mermaids like the sirens of the sea. Well, that order name came from the fact that, and I'm sure a lot of you guys already know this, but sailors originally thought that manatees were mermaids. Super ugly mermaids, but you know what? You gotta love everybody a little bit. So there's actually two different types of these. There's a dugong and a manatee. So you can kind of see the delineation. A dugong has more of like loose, pouty lips. I don't know, a little bit longer face. Manatees, they actually do live in the United States. They are a little bit bigger. Uh, they call them sea cows because they just graze and hang out and all of that stuff. And they typically always live in very warm water. The next one is elephants. So they are actually their own order, Proboscia. And if you think about a butterfly, butterflies have that really long, like nose tongue thing that actually allows them to get nectar from inside of flowers, and that is called a proboscis. So this order name Proboscia comes from their trunk, which is basically a proboscis. So you guys already heard all about elephants from our guest speaker, so I'm not going to go super in depth with them at all. We have our African elephant, our Asian elephant. There are also Borneo pygmy elephants, and there's a couple other different types, but very cool stuff. Next, we have the aardvarks. So aardvarks are their own thing. There are hairless aardvarks, as you can see in the bottom middle. It looks like a love child between a pig and a bunny rabbit, but not quite. Very weird, cute animals. A very long snout. They primarily eat ants and termites. They live in Africa because they live near those termite mounds that you guys have probably seen like big pictures of. And then they eat those termites. Cool things. Right. These are like so ugly that they're kind of adorable. So the Dermoptera, derm means skin, the optera part means like to fly. So like the bats were synoptera. So the dermoptera have, you can kind of see on the one that is like staring into your soul that it has a big skin flap, and that's actually how it can soar and glide out of trees. So these are like the Philippine flying lemur, the Sardinia flying lemur, typically rainforests of Southeast Asia. These are protected species. There's not a lot of them left. Um, Once again, so ugly that they're kind of cute. All right, then we have the hyraxes. A lot of people also think that these are rodents, but they are a little bit different. They are related if you go a little further up in order, but they are different. So the hyraxes live all over the Middle East and different parts of Africa. They can climb trees or rock faces, different things like that. They have specialized paws that actually help them to grip onto things because you can see their bodies are pretty hefty and their legs aren't very long, so they need to be pretty agile for how they're shaped. And then we have the pangolins. They believe the SARS epidemic started with a pangolin. It was a zoonotic virus that came from these animals that are eaten in parts of Asia and Africa. You can see that their ears weird me out because they look kind of like people ears, and it bothers me. So just notice that and then also be bothered, please. Thank you. With these as well, they have these plates that cover their body. So they look kind of like an armadillo, but more of like if the armadillo was cosplaying as a gladiator. With these, their scales are modified hair. So last time we talked about hair being modified scales made out of keratin. Well, pangolins kind of reverted back a little bit. So their scales are made out of the same stuff that hair is. They're just shaped very, very differently. So that is why they're still considered mammals. And then we have the jumping shrews. Now we have tree shrews. So these live in trees, obviously. They're kind of squirrely, but with a little bit of a longer nose. They don't have whiskers that are very prominent. So that is one of the ways that, like, on quick observation, you can tell the difference. And they only live in the rainforests of Southeast Asia. You notice there's a lot of biodiversity in that Southeast Asian region and also a lot of people. There's a lot of habitat loss. So a lot of our species, we are at risk of losing entire orders of organisms if we don't stop habitat encroachment. And those are all of our different orders of